Welcome to Week 5 of the Cavalier Insider Pregame Show. Andrew Ramspacker and Jerry Ratcliffe. As we break down Virginia and Ball State, it will be a noon kickoff on Saturday at Scott Stadium. For the Cavaliers, they enter at 2-2. For the Ball State Cardinals out of the Mid-American Conference, they enter at 4-1. Are certainly a dangerous opponent coming to Charlottesville this weekend. But before we get to that matchup, let's talk about what happened last week up at Heinz Field. And it was a combination of maybe one of the better defensive performances Virginia has had here the last decade or so, combined with one of the worst offensive performances these Wahoos have had in the last decade or so. Combined together with a couple of special teams gaffes, and you have a 14-3 result not in Virginia's favor. The Cavaliers falling to Pittsburgh up there at Heinz Field, falling to 0-1. In the ACC. And Hootie, let's get right to it. The storyline of this one, as we just mentioned, great defense and just brutal offense.
Yeah, you're right. It was a disastrous performance on offense. One of the worst I've ever seen by a Virginia team in my years covering them. And they just couldn't do anything right. They couldn't run the ball. They couldn't throw the ball. They just couldn't do anything. And it's a shame because that was a conference win on the road for the taking, and they just simply blew it. The defense played great. They shut down the ACC's leading passer, two of the most dangerous receivers in the league to a degree, stuffed their run, unbelievably successful at that. But they had no answers. A Pitt defense that had been a sieve pretty much the first month of the season, and Virginia couldn't hardly get a first down. So it was a shame to see one get away like that for a team that desperately needed a conference win and a road win.
Yeah, Pitt entered that one coming off a 58-55 wild win over Duke, so you looked at it as maybe an opportunity for this Virginia struggling offense to get healthy a little bit. Certainly it did not. Only 188 yards of total offense, just 11 first down, converted just 3 of 18 third downs, 1 of 4 fourth downs. Just all around. There's also 10 drops by the receivers. So any way you looked at that, there was no positives from that game. Now, to put that game in a nutshell, I guess, to talk about the defensive performance, you're talking about a Virginia defense that allowed less than 200 yards of offense, recorded 7 sacks, forced 3 turnovers, only allowed 5 of 18 third down conversions, and lost by 11 points.
Yeah, I mean, an offensive coach couldn't ask for anything more from his defense. They gave them so many opportunities. And I guess the field position wasn't always great because of the Pittsburgh had a good punter, but they had so many opportunities to do something and just couldn't generate much of anything. David Watford's passing was shaky again, I think. Had a couple of interceptions. I did like the fact that he ran the ball a few times and seems to be getting a little more comfortable with that. Had the 91-yard touchdown run called back. He stepped out of bounds. I guess he's just not that comfortable running it yet, but he did show flashes of what he possibly can do in the future with his speed, amazing speed on that run, and I think it's just a matter of him getting more comfortable with that read option.
Yeah, you talked about that. It would have been a 91-yard touchdown where he just stepped out of bounds. Ended up being just a 19-yard gain. It certainly would have given that offense something positive from Saturday's result. That happened in the first half there. But for the most part, there was not a lot of positives, and because of that, Virginia's gone with a makeover and editing of its depth chart, particularly at the offensive line, particularly at the receiver spot. We will talk about those changes and look ahead to the Ball State game here after this break. All right, welcome back to segment number 2 of the Cavalier Insider Pregame Show. Andrew Ramspacker and Jerry Ratcliffe counting down the kickoff. Virginia and Ball State noon Saturday at Scott Stadium. Of course, UVA coming in 2-2 after the loss to Pittsburgh. Ball State coming in at 4-1. And for UVA, it will be a bit of a new look, at least offensively, when it gets to Scott Stadium on Saturday. Because of that just anemic performance at Heinz Field, they have chosen to switch up the offensive line. The new right tackle is a true freshman, Eric Smith, will be making his first ever start, only his second ever game appearance. They have shifted the normal right tackle, Jay Whitmire, down to right guard, and now it's center. It is a rotating kind of an or situation between Ross Burbank and Jackson Mateo. I'd expect to see both those guys with meaningful reps. Also at receiver, you mentioned the 10 drops against Pitt in the first segment. Well, because of that, you have ors at every spot, whereas it could be Darius Jennings or Adrian Gamble or Keon Johnson. Another spot, it could be Tim Smith or Kyle Dawkins or Miles Gooch. It could be Dominic Terrell or E.J. Scott or Cannon Severin. So it is wide open in some key areas. Is this a kind of a panic move by the Virginia bunch?
You could say that, yeah. Usually football coaches are the last guys on earth who really want to make a wholesale change at this point in the season, but they have to do something. They can't. I don't think they can afford to stay at status quo because offensive line simply has not gotten the job done. I've thought it's been a problem here for more than 2 years, really, and that's why the offense has struggled so mightily. And I think that why not give somebody else a shot? They can't do any worse. So I think that the offensive line is the key to this whole thing. If they can get the blocking to punch some holes, I understand Smoke Mizell and Khalid Shepard will be back this week, so at least they'll have 3 experienced running backs in the attack. And they need to give some more protection to David Watford. He was running for his life the other day, and that's one reason I think that there were some of the drops, because some of the passes were not exactly spot on. And how accurate can you be if you're running for your life? So I think it's something that, even though it smacks of desperation, I think it's something that they had no choice to do.
I think when going into this season, we knew that offensive line would not necessarily be a major strength, and we knew that it was basically one injury away from being a major weakness. Connor Davis has been out for the last couple of weeks at that right guard spot. Not to say that Connor Davis is any, outlet and candidate or anything like that, but at least he gave you some experience, and at least it gave you some stability there. Past couple weeks have gone with Cody Wallace. Obviously, it's been a struggle. That's why you see a change specifically at that right guard spot, because there's not a lot of depth on this line. And I think that's been a huge reason, for the lack of running game, the lack of pass protection. As you mentioned, David Watford certainly was running for his life on Saturday. So pushing it ahead now to Ball State, the Cardinals enter this one as a very formidable non-conference opponent, pretty dangerous, I think, coming in at 4-1 with an experienced quarterback and a really good receiver in Willie Snead. Does this have kind of upset written on it?
Well, yeah, it's one of those kind of trap games that you think that a team should win, but they have so many dangerous people that you make a few mistakes and let those guys stick around. You're in for a ball game. Ball State scored more on Army than Stanford did. They lost to North Texas, who gave Georgia a fit for at least a half. So it's not a team to be taken lightly. And even though Ball State's defense is a little bit suspect, their offense has been very lethal so far this season. And like you said, a really good quarterback and at least 2 good receivers.
So will Ball State actually pull off that upset? We'll get to our predictions after this break. Okay, welcome to the third and final segment, Cavalier Insider Pregame Show. Andrew Ranspacker and Jerry Ratcliffe. To wrap this thing up, Virginia and Ball State on Saturday. It's a noon kickoff, and as we mentioned in our second segment, it's certainly a dangerous opponent. The Cardinals coming in at 4-1 against the 2-2 Cavaliers, who obviously have their issues, especially on the offensive side. So with that, we'll get to predictions. I'll go first and kind of set the stage for Hootie. And for Virginia, this is not only a kind of a trap game, as you mentioned in the previous segment, but it's just a key part of the schedule. This is the last non-conference game. It has that kind of that Louisiana Tech feel to it, as Louisiana Tech came in at this part of the schedule last year and came away with a 44-38 win. If Ball State scores 44 points on Saturday, they will win handily. I can guarantee you that. However, this is a new Virginia defense. I am not totally going to give up on this Virginia offense just yet. I think that they will manage just to do just enough on Saturday. And I think the UVA defense will get a score of its own. And I think that has to happen for Virginia to win. I think they'll do it. And UVA squeaks out of this one with a 20-17 win on Scott Stadium. That's Scott Stadium, excuse me.
Yeah, I agree. I think Ball State, it does have that kind of Louisiana Tech feel to it. I'm not sure they're as good as Louisiana Tech was last year, but they do have a team that can put a lot of points on the board. But I think Virginia's defense is good enough to shut these guys down just like they shut Pitt's passing game down last week. The question is, Virginia's offense, can they get it together, particularly with so many new moving parts interjected into the system this week. I think that somehow they'll find a way to score enough touchdowns to win. I think Virginia will win by a touchdown. I'll say 24-17, something like that.
There you have it. A couple of maybe some last chance shots here for UVA to get a win as it goes into ACC play next week at Maryland. So that will do it for our Cavalier Insider pregame show. Again, kickoff is noon on Saturday at Scott Stadium. For Jerry Ratcliffe, I'm Andrew Anspacher. All right, welcome to Week 5. Sorry, that's our intro.